It feels like Christmas morning here at the Mello Center. That's Sam Reis. I'm Hudson Ridley, and we're excited to bring you everything there is to know about Syracuse men's basketball this year. Sam, we'll have the schedule, and we'll have more.
A little bit of everything, really. We get to talk to some of the returning players, also some new additions, even Coach Autry. It should be a lot of fun.
We'll break down the women's basketball schedule, their outlook as well, and a whole lot more. It's our basketball preview show on Citrus TV, and it starts right now. Just weeks away from the start of the men's basketball season as we welcome you to Media Day at the Carmelo Anthony Center. We've got everything on the docket today, a whole lot to get to, and we'll start by thinking about last year. This was a season for Syracuse men's basketball that did not go the way they wanted. The tournament drought now at this point is the longest it's been since the 1960s. And Sam, there were some key losses along the way.
There were. It just didn't go well for this team. Syracuse finishing under 500. Pretty much unheard of. A 7-13 record as well in ACC play, and you know, it was a sign of things to come early on in the season with, you know, close wins, yes, but close games against the likes of Lemoyne. You had that double overtime game against Youngstown State, and then that catapulted into later in the season some really brutal losses, not even competitive games against some of the better teams like Tennessee and Maryland.
Exactly. You can glean a lot from the beginning of that season, so it's imperative to see the way that Syracuse men's basketball starts this year. And Sam, I do look to those early games, especially where Syracuse did struggle, fell behind early against some teams that maybe they should have beaten.
Yeah, that cannot happen. And you know, you maybe gave them the benefit of the doubt in real time that, okay, you know, there's some new faces here. It's a group that maybe needs some time to gel. But again, it was kind of a domino effect where one close game against one of those, you know, weaker non-conference opponents led to another scare. And then all of a sudden, once the conference schedule came around and even those tough non-conference games, you could tell they were just completely outmatched, weren't really ready to go, and that led to some just poor results. You know, never mind the brutal losses they had against the likes of Maryland and Tennessee that I mentioned, but also some just bad losses in general, like Georgetown at the Dome, you know, like a Miami in conference play. Results like that cannot happen looking ahead to the season.
Exactly, and this is an ACC schedule too, Sam, that is not an easy one to crack, just like every year.
That's right, and as we, you know, shift focus to what's ahead for this year's team, that it is a new look team for the most part, with the exception of Donnie Freeman and JJ Starling. It is an ACC schedule that, for me, is actually a manageable one early on. You know, you have the likes of BC. Yeah, you open up with Clemson at the Dome, but I think it might be a down year for the Tigers. You have some winnable games on the docket like Pitt before the final stretch of conference play,
which is so hard.
It really gets tough.
It really is.
The top three favorites in this conference, Duke, UNC, and Louisville, you're on the road at all of them, not to mention the fact that you have to play the Tar Heels twice, both away and home. So
within a span of a few weeks as well.
Within a span of a few weeks. So it's really, to me, about taking care of business in the first month or so of conference play, because if you don't do that, it could spell trouble for the latter stages of that conference schedule.
And you also look to some of the games where they have opponents they match up well against. Boston College on the road in February, and then you look at Pitt at home to cap off the year. Another game that you absolutely have to win. Even with conference wins, you really can't do much, especially in the ACC now, if you don't have a solid non-conference. And Syracuse has billed itself to have a very good non-conference slate this year. A couple of what you would call tomato cans, I guess. Some of those teams you can beat up on, but boy, some of the schedule that they have is very difficult. National runner-up Houston is on the docket this year, as well as a matchup with Kansas and then back home against Tennessee. Sam, this is not easy.
No, it's not. And I do like the fact that, you know, Syracuse and Adrian Autry wanted to participate, you know, in the Players Era event out in Vegas, where you have 18 total teams participating in that event. And these are some of the best teams in the nation, like you said. Houston and Kansas, not going to be easy. So I like how they're testing themselves early in the season, because let's face it, you know, they're gonna have to do that before conference play rolls around to get a gauge on where they're at. You know, take away, the rest of that non-conference slate. And then, yeah, ACC, SEC challenge, potential revenge game against Tennessee, where you weren't really competitive with them down in Knoxville last year. Now you get home court advantage against them at the Dome. So it's going to be difficult, but if you can scratch, one win out of those 4 total games between Vegas and Tennessee, I think you could be onto something.
The team that has to do it still has to be discussed, though. A lot of newcomers, only a few returners, and Adrian Autry has to put it all together. We'll talk to Adrian Autry on the other side, and we'll also talk to a couple of players as well. Keep it right here on the Men's Basketball Preview Show.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Welcome back to our men's basketball preview show here on CitrusTV at the Mello Center. I'm Sam Reis, now joined by William Kyle, transfer from UCLA. William, you started out at South Dakota State, then UCLA, now Syracuse. Why come here to the 315?
I mean, you look up there, you see all those banners. It's a winning culture, and just the chance to be a part of that and bring Syracuse back to that was very, very intriguing for me. And just all the pieces we have, and the coaching staff, I just have great belief in them and belief in the guys around me. I feel like all that brought me to Syracuse.
And when it comes to your game in particular, what have you been working on in the weeks leading up to the season opener, which is just around the corner, that will make you ready to go and make an impact for this team?
Yeah, I've been working on a lot of things. Free throw's a big one, and just I feel like another big thing I've been working on is just my talk. Just continuing to challenge myself to be the quarterback in the backside of the defense, calling out everything for my teammates that they may not see, and just being that communicator. And obviously the other things on the court, just flying around, trying to be disruptive as well on the defensive end, and then rebounding as well.
And last question for you, to come to Syracuse and play for head coach Adrian Autry. What has that been like so far in preseason, and what about him made you want to come here too?
Yeah, for sure. It's been awesome. It's been great. He's got after me, and I know it's all in love, because I remember when I entered the portal and I came on my visit, he told me he's gonna get the best out of me, and he's done just that. And he's challenged everybody here, like I said, to get back to where Syracuse basketball needs to be, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing experience.
William Kyle, thanks so much for the time. And speaking of Coach Autry, Hudson is now with the head man of the Orange. Hudson, off to you.
That's right, Sam, and we're joined by head coach Adrian Autry for Media Day ahead of the 2025-26 season. We've talked a lot about rebuilding already, and when you look at guys like Donnie Freeman and J.J. Starling, including them in the decision-making process for the portal, what was that process like in terms of going up to them and asking, hey, what do you guys want to see in your team?
Well, I think we had to get them to come back, and they said, yeah, we're going to come back. And then we just basically showed them the vision, how we want to play, how these players will complement their games and help their games, and how everyone fit. So that was really a lot of film, and then identifying the guys that we were looking for and having them be a part of the process. I think after probably 2 or 3 days, they understood what we were doing, and they just trusted us the rest of the way. But it was good to have them in there, and I thought that was important for them to be a part of that process. I thought we wanted to do something different, right? Like, we wanted to, obviously you get those two coming back. I think they needed to know what the roster was going to look like.
You mentioned, too, fitting that play style. You talked a lot of last year about 20 to 25 more possessions a game, and maybe sometimes the roster wasn't fully equipped to handle that. Do you feel like the roster you've built this year is ready to handle that 20 to 25 more possessions a game?
What I will say is I've learned each year, so I won't give you a number of how many possessions, but I do think this team is equipped to get extra possessions. With our length and our speed and the work ethic that we've had this summer, I do believe that this team is built to be able to create some extra possessions and some turnovers and get out in transition.
One of the headliners of that portal class, too, that you brought in was Nate George. What makes him so special?
You talk about a guy that plays one of the most important positions on the team in point guard, and I was a point guard myself, and a big point guard, a guy that can shoot the ball, a guy that can that's tremendous in pick and roll, has great vision, and is a leader. And he knows the position. He's played this position. We're not trying to convert him. He's just growing in the position. And I just thought, watching him the last 2 years, he improved every year in every aspect of his game. So we're just thrilled and excited to have him.
The ACC's assist leader from last season, averaging over 6 a game. When he got on the block as someone that you could get, what was your reaction to that?
It was great. It was exciting. Him being from Toronto, I thought that, proximity, I thought that really helped us. And so I was just excited. I mean, you didn't expect people to be in the portal, someone like him. And, once he came available, we were all in, all hands in. JJ, Donnie, everybody was all hands in and trying to get him to come here.
You added a lot through the portal, but you also added a lot of freshmen as well. Obviously, you've got Fennell and Womack too, but the biggest headliners of your class being Kyan Anthony and Sadiq White. Maybe in the early season, obviously these roles can change, but where do you see them fitting into this team in the early goings?
I think they fit in just well. You're talking about two guys that are versatile, that can play multiple positions, and I think this team is a team that is versatile, that they all can play with the ball in their hand, without the ball in their hand, defending, being able to guard smaller people, bigger people. So I think they'll fit in just with the whole plan of the way we have our team constructed. They fit right in.
They're two of those puzzle pieces that you kind of have to put together, and you talked about it a little bit earlier of you guys bonding together as a team over the summer and doing some fun activities. Of the activities that you guys did over the summer, what stands out to you as oh, I loved that. I really like doing that.
We had a good time, and it was. I didn't expect it, but we had a really good time bowling. It got pretty competitive there.
Really?
Yeah. We were in there bowling, and guys were getting after it. We stayed a little bit extra, too, extra time. So it was fun. That was really fun.
Who was the best bowler?
I feel like, I know from the staff it was Pete Corsiniti and Dan Engelstad. Mm-hmm. From the players, it might have been, you know what? It was JJ.
Really?
JJ Starling, yes. JJ's a pretty good bowler.
Add that to the list of JJ Starling's talents. Before we let you go, got one more question for you. This is kind of a fill in the blank. Syracuse basketball has a successful season in 2025-2026 if
we stay healthy.
Boom. There you go. If you stay healthy, that's Coach Adrian Autry. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we've got more roster reconstruction talk and some interviews with players when we come back.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
We welcome you back to our men's basketball preview show here on Citrus TV. Alongside Hudson Ridley, I'm Sam Reis. Already a couple of great interviews. And Hudson, when it comes to this year's team in particular, there's no beating around the bush. Lots of new faces. Donnie and JJ, the two returners on this team, but there was a lot of roster reconstruction in the offseason, a lot of guys who are now out the door.
Yeah, essentially everybody's gone. When you look at it from top to bottom, guards, forwards, big men, everybody is gone. And even though it's not the biggest hit to the team, when you look at the big men that you have to replace, Eddie Lampkin was your leading rebounder last year. And then you look at a guy like Naheem McLeod, which he didn't provide a lot in his time here, but still, he was an important depth piece that was a good rim protector. So you have to fill holes like that. The forward spot's not too tough. Chris Bell, you have to replace his shooting. And then you look at the guards that you lose as well. Somehow a little underwhelming, especially Jaquan Carlos was a tad bit underwhelming. So that shouldn't be too hard to replace. I think a lot of the players that they are losing will be people that are semi-easy to replace.
I tend to agree with you, and we'll get more into who those replacements are in a little bit. The reality is some of those names that are now out the door for Syracuse did underwhelm a bit. You know, even a guy like Chris Bell, there were inconsistencies there, especially last season. Jaquan Carlos I'd throw in there. You know, a guy I look at, though, who I felt like had a lot of potential that it's a bit unfortunate he's out the door is Elijah Moore. Now, there are reinforcements coming in, more off to Utah. We saw glimpses of what he could do. I mean, he balled out in that game against Tennessee. Even Maryland, when the rest of the team didn't show up, he did. So I like the promise that was there with Moore. It's unfortunate that he's gone, but again, Adrian Autry made sure that he brought in some reinforcements to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, losing Elijah Moore is difficult because it's a guy you thought could be your cornerstone at guard for this program, and so no longer having that does make it a little bit difficult. I do feel as if Elijah Moore maybe was a little too inconsistent at times, even for a freshman, to really have him be your guy in the backcourt maybe going forward. Some of the backcourt replacements, though, kind of address that. The one big thing that you do lose with him is when he was on fire and he was shooting hot, he was fantastic. And so that's really tough to replace. That's a guy who could have gone to a lot of places. St. John's was a name thrown out there early, which was a program that was a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. But Elijah Moore opted to go to Utah, which why? It was a bit of a surprise, but you know, in the NIL world, anything is possible. And you know, now he's got a chance to build a program up over there. But boy, I really did not expect it to go the way it did with him, and so I'm very interested to see what the Orange do to replace it.
So we've talked all about the roster reconstruction of this year's team, but one of the main guys back, J.J. Starling, and we're now pleased to be joined by the man himself here at the Carmelo Anthony Center here on our basketball preview show. J.J., thanks so much for taking the time. This is now year 3 for you in the 315. You're the longest tenured player on this team with a bunch of new faces. First off, how does that sound?
I mean, it's great to be able to, you know, come back to my hometown team and build something special here.
Right, and for you, after having those 2 years under your belt playing for Syracuse, what have you learned that has helped you prepare for this moment, your final chance, senior year, to potentially get this team back to March Madness?
I mean, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned is that you're going to obviously face adversity no matter what you do. You know, but at the end of the day, as long as you show up every day and build good habits and rely on those habits, then you can, you know, get through any obstacle that you face and encounter as a team and individually.
You and Donnie, the 2 returners on this team, I mentioned there's a lot of new faces. So how are you embracing that leadership role that you're taking on this season with so many transfers and then obviously a talented freshman class too?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a learning process for me. Just continue to build into, like you said, that leadership role. But it's been a fun process doing it with a great group of guys that are willing to listen, and we're all working towards the same goal. So when you have, you know, a great group of guys like that, it makes leading that much easier, you know, and that much better. So it's been a fun process, and I'm just looking forward to continue to grow and, you know, shape my game as a leader and, you know, both on the court and off the court. Yeah,
and when it comes to what you do on the court, you had a great season last year. When you were on it, of course, you had that little bit of a setback in December with the left hand injury. I know there was an aggravation of the right hand this summer. So how are we feeling health-wise? Because I know you mentioned last week at the ACC tip-off event in Charlotte that you're 100%, you're good to go. That's true?
Yeah, I'm 100%.
And what are some of those things you learned, you know, when you weren't at 100% maybe, having to kind of battle through and trust the process of, okay, I have to push through here and still try my best for the team?
Yeah, I mean, just taking last year as an example, at first that was just really mentally draining for me, to be off the court, not being able to do something that I love. But once I accepted the circumstances for what they were, and I just looked to improve even off the court, that's when everything just got so much easier for me. So just because I wasn't able to participate on the court doesn't mean I can not be on the you know, sidelines leading like that, or watching film with my coaches and making sure that the game is slowing down for me. So same thing this year when I got hurt, I was trying to do the same thing because I've been through that process before.
Right, and one last thing as we roll on here on our basketball preview show, what does it mean for you to play for Coach Autry? And not only that, he talked a little bit earlier about you know, him kind of getting your and Donnie's input on who you guys should go after in the portal. What does that mean to you that he has the trust in you to kind of have that say for what this team can do going forward?
I mean, it means a lot to me. As a player, that's what you want, and that's what you work for, to build that trust with the head coach. So to be able to, hear him say that out loud is just an amazing feeling, and it's a true testament to the work that not only myself but Donnie puts in. To be able to have that trust from your head coach to perform on the court and to recruit guys to help, perform with you.
Right, and I know I said one last question. I have a few more actually for you. But I appreciate you taking the time. With these newcomers coming in, how has that been like, kind of developing that chemistry to get you guys ready for the season opener? And who are some of those maybe transfers or freshmen that you've already grown close with and kind of have developed that bond?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, this process has been really enjoyable. Bringing in a great group of guys that just work. So, it's been fun competing with them every single day. We're pushing each other, and that ultimately builds chemistry. Going at each other every single day to where you get to a point where you're looking forward to playing somebody else, So that I feel like that's where we're at right now, but our chemistry is really good right now.
All right, thanks so much for the time, JJ Starling. We look forward to seeing you out on the court this season for your senior year. Well, it was great having the chance to talk to JJ just now, and he's one of those impact stars on this team that's expected to deliver. Him and Donnie Freeman, really the two key pieces, as I'm now back with Hudson. For me, Hudson, the key really is both of these guys staying healthy throughout the season, something Coach Autry, I know, stressed as well.
Yeah, he hinted at that. He said if Syracuse was going to have a successful 2025-26 season, it is if they stay healthy. And those two really do play the biggest impact role on this team when you consider what JJ Starling has done, being one of the leading scorers of this team and kind of starting to find his way as a facilitator. He won't really have to do that much. But then when you look at Donnie Freeman, that was your second guy to get rebounds behind Eddie Lampkin when he was healthy. Now he may be your primary guy, depending on how much different people play in different roles. And if William Kyle, it will really be that impactful, but it does remain to be seen.
And with both of those players, Donnie and JJ, missing some time last season, they were still the two leading scorers in points per game for this team. Just last year alone, we saw how important they were to that group, and even more so this year, considering how many new guys have come in the door. And for those of you who don't remember what happened last year exactly, of course, Donnie only played the first 14 games, then suffered a fracture in his foot, underwent surgery in February. He's 100%, and then JJ missing a whole month there with a broken left hand. So I think both of them are just excited about the prospect of being fully healthy here, because it is true. Like, if one of those guys goes down, all of a sudden I think
the system
narrative
changes
for the season changes, and the system, to your point.
Exactly.
Like, it just changes things around.
One of the funnier things was, too, the fact that those two were really two of the only players that could run that system. Maybe you could consider Jair Davis as a guy that could get up and down the court, run that system, play hard, take it to the rim, like play smart, physical basketball, and there weren't a lot of guys in the right shape or the right conditioning to really fit that system.
I agree, and it's something that I'm looking forward to this year, with how some of those new additions will mesh with the likes of Starling and Freeman to put the pieces together for this team that's anxious to get back to the NCAA tournament.
Certainly, and you got to consider too the fact that this is a squad that has a lot of potential, a lot of young guys, 11 newcomers, so a lot on the plate there.
And some of those newcomers that I'm really excited about, I point to Nate Kings, honestly, as a guy. I know you talked with Nathan George as well, and kind of detailed what he brings to the table as the leading assister last year in the ACC. But Kings as well shot 45% from three at Oregon State. If he can be that consistent outside presence, I'm excited for what he can bring to this team and really provide that spark.
He's got that outside presence, and I know you caught up with one of the inside presences in Sadiq White.
Chemistry, it kind of hit off by itself, you know what I'm saying? Everybody wanted to come in and learn and win games and then just be there for each other, you know what I'm saying? Our relationships off the court, everyone gets along, we all hang out. It's just something that's different here. It's different here for sure.
And what are some of the strengths of your game that you're looking forward to, putting on display really right off the bat, and that's a strength that you bring to this team right away?
Yes, sir. Just being a defensive pest, being able to guard any position that coach needs me to guard. It don't matter if, point guards through forwards, being able to switch, you know what I'm saying, and get in transition, do my thing in transition, have a couple highlights, get my teammates involved, hit a couple open shots.
Boy, that's some fun stuff from Sadiq Whitesam.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love talking to Sadiq because he just had that smile on his face the whole time. You can tell he's so excited to be here at Syracuse. What you didn't hear there also is him just in explaining his reason why he wanted to play for the Orange is just the fan base here. This is still a basketball school.
It is. It is.
So he talked about just his excitement of playing at the Dome, and it's something Coach Autry touched on as well with White in particular, his really ferocity on the defensive end. He's that spark, that energizer for this team. I think we'll see him come off the bench early on in the season, but he's going to be that guy that like comes on, makes an impact, I think, right away in these first couple of games of the season, because he can translate that skill set to the college level pretty quickly, I think, especially with his ability to fly in transition.
And he's a guy that could have gone anywhere. You look at his 5-star profile, this is a guy that had a lot of schools on the table that he was looking at, and especially after a season where Syracuse goes under 500, the fact that the Orange managed to maintain him in the NIL era is still something that is very impressive, and he not only is maintained, but seems like a guy that's very bought into this team. And it's not just him. There's a lot of these guys here today that we've gleaned from talking to that are really fired up about it.
Right, and one of those, of course, being Klein Anthony. We've gone long enough without mentioning him. He'll be one of those guys, obviously, that'll have the spotlight on him throughout his time at Syracuse because of his dad, Carmelo, of course. But I love the fact that Klein already seems mature for a freshman. In addition to Sadiq, really. These are two guys who know the expectations coming on as such highly touted recruits, and Klein's ready to kind of make his own legacy here. Of course, his dad's a legend, but he's a pretty good player as well. #1 player in the state of New York, and it shows you a lot about his character that he wanted to come here and play at his dad's alma mater.
It certainly does, and you have to imagine that with him and the rest of this team right now, they're fired up to have him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to especially this freshman class in addition to all of those transfers.
Plenty new players to talk about indeed, and I'm joined by one right now. We're here with Nate George at Syracuse Men's Basketball Media Day. Now, the biggest question that we've been kind of wondering, you were a guy that Adrian Autry didn't expect himself to get in the portal. What went into the decision process of deciding to come here?
Right. Shoot, for me, it was kind of just the consistency that Syracuse showed me throughout the portal. They showed me how much I could impact winning here and just how much I could just impact the team in general and just be a leader. So that was the main thing, and them just showing me love every day. Like, they called me, checked up on me just for my personal well-being, just because it's a kind of a hard process because you're kind of investing into your next, your next stop. So I say those were the main reasons, and then also Syracuse is a winning program, so I just love the history, and it's also closer to home for me. So
that's true. Being from Canada, does that make an impact on wanting to go a little bit closer to home here?
Yeah, for sure, because I've been away from home for about like 5 years now, so this was just a big transition for me that I was looking forward to. So
I'm sure that makes it easier for family to come down and visit you as well.
Yeah, way easier.
I'm sure. Now, when we talked to Adrian Autry as well, he really liked your play style in terms of distributing. What do you think you bring to this Syracuse team?
Right. Sure, like you said, just distributing, kind of getting everybody touches that they want and need, because you kind of need that balance, because not everybody can just go shoot the ball. So I feel like I keep that balance, and I get guys involved whenever they need it.
How have you felt like you fit into the team in the offseason?
Right. I think I fit pretty well. Like, everybody is the guys that care, and I'm someone that cares as well. So we all just gelled and connected really well, because we had a lot of community events, and we spent a lot of time together. So yeah, we connected very well throughout this offseason.
Of those community events, was there anything that really stuck out to you, something you did during the offseason?
Shoot. We just had like a little golfing thing, so I think that was pretty good. I love that. I think the guys did as well.
Can you golf?
Nah. Nah, we were just putting it, but yeah, I didn't get no putts, so yeah, I'm no good.
It's hard. It's a hard sport. A lot easier to play basketball. That's Nate George of Syracuse Men's Basketball. Nate, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Hudson. Great stuff, and we've been previewing the men's basketball season, but how about the women? We'll get to them after a break here on Citrus TV.
CWX. not okay to drive.
YGKLVW. Regular you.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Citrus TV's basketball preview show rolls on from the Mello Center at Sam Reis. I'm Hudson Ridley, but not all our coverage is in the Mello Center. Syracuse women's basketball gearing up for their season as well, and Sam, for that, we toss it back to our studios, our Citrus TV studios, where Adam Gotkin is standing by with our women's basketball beat reporter, Jake Klein. Guys?
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is a really important season for Felicia Legette-Jack. Now in her 4th year as head coach, she's had some up and downs, but needs to get back up this year.
Yeah, you said it. Progression in the first 2 years from the WNIT to March Madness in year 2 really took a step back last year. Syracuse has to rebound.
Yeah, and you look at last year's team, it really never got off to a good start. From the very beginning of the season, they just didn't look like they did in the 2 years with De'Asia Fair, losing to teams like St. Joe's, UAlbany early in the season. It just wasn't the Syracuse that people were expecting.
No doubt, and it came from a lack of that kind of superstar player, which it feels like Syracuse has again, perhaps, in the Texas transfer, Layla Felia, but Adam, I'm interested in that schedule a little because you said it. There were some slip-ups against mid-major opponents. Not a ton of opportunity for that this year.
Syracuse has high expectations. They want to get back there, but they did lose some pretty important pieces in this offseason, especially you look at the bigs. Kyra Wood, Isabel Verjao, Sanaya Wilson, players who have been very important parts of this team ever since FLJ showed up. And then I think the big one is losing really your leader in Georgia Woolley.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Syracuse loses 5 of its top 7 scorers from last year, 2 of its 3 leading rebounders, its leading assister, its leader in steals, and its leader in blocks. So there's pretty much nothing you don't have to replace if you're Syracuse. But Felicia Legette-Jack's lucky, Adam. She went into the portal. She had the benefit of getting some of the money from that $20.5 million revenue share, and she took advantage.
And you look at the roster construction going into this year. There are some returners. You look at mainly Sophie Burrows being the one, but then also those sophomores and Shai Hawkins and Kira Scott being players who really are looking to take the next step and be more of leaders on this team after looking pretty good as underclassmen.
And you have to lump Maddie Potts and Olivia Schmidt in that category, although I would probably argue if you're Syracuse, you're hoping those two don't have to play as much as they did a year ago. But some of these additions, in addition to the players that they bring back, namely the shooting. That's really the number one thing that Syracuse brings back this year. Between Sophie Burrows and Maddie Potts, it's 2 leaders in three-point shooting from a year ago. Outside of that, it's going to have to come from the newbies.
They also have Angelica Velez coming back, so there are options there. And overall, I think there is a lot of talent on this team. I don't think it's at all a debate to say that top to bottom, you look at just pure roster, this is the best that Felicia Legette-Jack has had. There might not
There's no De'Asia Fair.
That's what I was going to say. There might not be a De'Asia Fair, but you do have Layla Felia, who's a former first-team All-Big Ten player and could be a potential star for this team.
Yeah, Syracuse really hopes that Layla Felia can get back to the way she played 2 seasons ago when she was at Michigan, because when she was at Texas last year, played only 8 games for a team that eventually went to the Final Four, completely lost vision in one of her eyes after a detached retina. So if she can get back to that 17, 18 point per game range, she could almost be, dare I say, a De'Asia Fair for the Syracuse team this year.
That's what we were talking about before we got on here is, does Syracuse need a player to take over like De'Asia Fair did? Because last year they simply didn't have it. Team-wise, it was a talented team, but they didn't have a player that you could say, here's the ball, go get me a bucket. Felia could be that, though.
I think she could, and I also think Sophie Burrows could be. There were a couple of games last year. You look at that home game against Virginia where Sophie Burrows had a career high, over 20 points for the first time in her career. Like, she showed glimpses of it. Can she get there more consistently? If she can, I think Syracuse gets a DeAsia fair level of production by committee almost.
And so we've talked a lot about the key guards and wings on this team with Shai Hawkins, Kira Scott, and then Sophie Burrows and Felia. But we just said how there's a lot of bigs that Syracuse lost in the offseason. But Felicia Leggett-Jack went not just to the portal, but also looking at some freshmen and got a lot of size and some players who look like they could make a real impact down low.
And as big as a loss as Georgia Woolley is for the Syracuse team, I would argue that the bigger loss is kind of that duo, maybe trio if you include Sanaya Wilson, of the bigs, Isabella Zhao, Kyra Wood as well. Syracuse has done some fascinating things, in my opinion, to kind of rebuild that front court. It starts with the freshman Izoja Uchi, originally from Africa, spent the last 7 years in Japan. Felicia Leggett-Jack said she had a long battle to get Uchi eligible for this season, but 6'3", super athletic, can grab the rim. Really more of a scoring big who's going to play almost a forward role for this Syracuse team this year. Felicia Leggett-Jack, super excited about her. And then kind of an old school big in Ayindamola Akimbalawa, a.k.a. Big O, who comes over from Auburn. Kind of a mix of contributions to that Tigers team last year, a team that Syracuse will play this season. But she's kind of a old-fashioned, back-to-the-basket type of big. Coach Jack says when you're in doubt, you get the ball to Big O.
It's going to be really interesting to see how they look on the court. Let's get into the schedule for this team this season. So, it's always going to be difficult playing in the ACC, and we'll get into the conference action in a moment, but you look at the start of the season in non-conference play, of course, in basketball, the big thing you look at is that early mid-season tournament, and they're going down to Mohegan Sun to take part in one of those early season matchups.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough tournament for Syracuse. They play against Utah and then against Michigan. That's going to be rough. Syracuse, on paper at least, is probably the fourth best of the four teams in that tournament. You also have the ACC-SEC Challenge game against Auburn. But Adam, I look at kind of the non-conference slate as a whole. There's not a whole lot there outside of those three games.
You don't have Maryland or even St. Joe's last year, who is St. Joe's but was one of the best teams in the A-10 and was fighting for an NCAA tournament bid. So it's very questionable. I think at the end of the day, though, they have to be winning those games, right? It can't be like last year where you drop one to UAlbany.
Right, you can't have that UAlbany game from last year. You got to take care of business in the games you're supposed to take care of business with, and then you'll be okay even if you lost all three of those power conference games.
And then we'll end it on this. You get into the ACC in women's basketball, it's always tough. It's the ACC in an Olympic sport. It is going to be close to impossible to win games. What's the conference outlook look like right now?
Well, look, you've got some of the elite teams in college basketball, right? Duke, NC State, North Carolina. Those are going to be games that in any year with any team, it's going to be tough for Syracuse to win. Then you've got games that they probably should handle with what we think is a better roster this year. Those are the Boston Colleges, the Wake Forests, Georgia Tech, where I think Syracuse is really going to make its money, try to make some noise in the ACC, are those money middle-tier games. A lot of them they dropped last year. Syracuse went 2-5 against the middle third of the ACC last year. If they can flip some of those results against a Florida State or a Cal or an SMU, they're going to be in a lot better shape to try to make some noise.
Well, we'll see. It'll be difficult. It always is in the ACC. But, Jake, thank you so much. We'll go back to the Mello Center. Keep talking some men's hoops.
Hey, thanks so much, Adam. And we look forward to Jake's coverage throughout the season, covering this women's basketball squad, Hudson, that's kind of in a similar boat to the men's team in the sense that there's a lot of roster reconstruction there as well. And coming off an underwhelming campaign too. I'm excited to see how head coach Felicia Leggett-Jack puts together all these pieces, led by Sophie Burrows, who I think is going to have a breakout season.
Exactly, I agree with that. And Felicia Leggett-Jack is someone who's done it at a couple of programs now too, even with some dry spells. She's turned it around. Yeah. She really just needs that special player. And when we've seen past tenures of Felicia Leggett-Jack, whether it's at Indiana or Hofstra, she just needs that one player. Sophie Burrows, to your example, I think is going to be fantastic. Shai Hawkins, another name to look at, who was one of their main creators of the returners that they have. Those are the two that I'm really looking at to do well.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, and I think FLJ realized, the weaknesses of her team last year and is hoping to correct those with some key transfers that Jake touched on moments ago heading into the season.
You heard the projections for women's basketball and everything. Now we'll have the projections for men's basketball. Starting lineup and everything you'll need to know on the other side of this.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where do cats go on vacation? New York.
Wrapping up shop here on the basketball preview show from the Mello Center, and Kai and Anthony still shooting free throws behind us, even though Media Day has been gone for some time. If that doesn't fire you up, if you're a Syracuse basketball fan, Sam, I don't know what will.
No, you gotta love it. Everyone, including Kai, locked in for this upcoming season, and hey, free throws are an area they need to improve on.
Brent Axe always says, free throws do matter. Sam, when we look at the starting lineup, there's a good chance that Kai and Anthony may not be in it as a freshman, but when we start to dig through who may be in that starting five in the opener against Binghamton, who are you going with?
Yeah, let's roll through my starting five, shall we? I've Nathan George as the starting point guard who you got to catch up with. I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I'm excited to see him facilitate this offense. And then, of course, J.J. Starling as the shooting guard, and then Donnie Freeman as the power forward. Those two, no doubters.
Yes.
At the small forward, I think Nate Kings is going to start for
Agreed.
this team. So I like his presence on the perimeter, a great shooter from outside. I'm excited to see what he brings from this team coming over from Oregon State. And then William Kyle, starting center. Now at his third school, he's learned a lot. Played in the tournament with UCLA. I like that experience he brings to the table to fill in that hole of Eddie Lampkin. So that's the starting five I'm pretty confident that we'll see on opening night.
I agree, and if I had to give the starting five, I would say the exact same. Nate George at point guard, J.J. Starling at the 2, at the 3, Nate Kings at the 4, Donnie Freeman, and at the 5, William Kyle rounding it out. Now, with how much they're going to get up and down the court this season, at least with what Autry's plan has signaled over the past few years, I would imagine there would be a good bit of rotation that does end up happening with the 4 and 5 spot to keep the big guys fresh, and you'd have to imagine the first guy off the bench in that regard would be Sadiq White.
Yeah, Sadiq White will be that first guy off the bench. That's
You would
what I
assume. You would
expect.
assume.
Yeah, probably. In all likelihood, I expect him to get some good minutes early on in the season and really settle in with this non-conference slate at the beginning before you head to Vegas, so he's kind of ready for that, and he would be my 6th-man pick. I really like the energy he plays with. On the defensive end, I expect him to cause some turnovers, and then he's best when flying in transition. He can get you those buckets when this team plays at a fast pace, which I think is going to be the style of this offense at times for Coach Autry's squad.
Fast, physical, crash the glass. That's going to be very important in the first few games of the season. And Sam, that early schedule, the Orange have a couple of teams where you would imagine they would be the higher seed there.
Yeah, I agree, and that all starts off not too far from now. Monday, November 3rd, season opener inside the Dome when Syracuse welcomes Binghamton, a local foe for the non-conference slate. That'll be a 7 p.m. tip-off. Of course, Orange Press Pass will have you covered here on Citrus TV afterwards. But you're right, Hudson. I think to start the season, you have to get off to winning ways. It's Binghamton, then Delaware State. You got Monmouth in there. These are games that you should win. In fact, I don't think it's too crazy to say that the expectation should be that this team is 4-0 before that gauntlet out in Vegas and then Tennessee coming back home.
No doubt. When you look at those first 4 games, especially Drexel on the road's another interesting one where you throw in there with technically the Orange are the home team at the Xfinity Center in Philadelphia, so an interesting matchup there with Drexel down in Philly. But then you look at the Vegas tournament, the Players Era tournament, 18 teams in that tournament, the Orange being one of them, and the first 2 that they face, Houston and Kansas, so it is not an easy road.
No, there's no denying that Houston and Kansas will be pretty big favorites in those games. But again, if you can have some comfortable wins to begin this non-conference slate against more reasonable opponents you're going up against, I think you can roll into Vegas with some extra confidence and maybe spring a surprise. Try to get one win in Vegas if you can.
Well, we hope we wrapped everything up for you neat and a nice little bow. We gave you everything you could possibly want on this basketball preview show, and throughout it, you had to keep thinking, boy, this is going to be an exciting and fun season.
I'm looking forward to it. Pumped up.
I certainly am as well. Before we head out, a couple of thank yous to give. Our producers, Adam, Avin, Matt, Parry, Rhianna, Abeel, and the whole team at Citrus TV. Sam, this was a pleasure, and we hope you follow our social media for coverage all year long at Citrus TV Sports on both Instagram and Twitter. That's all from us inside the Mello Center. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you're ready for this Syracuse men's basketball 2025-26 season.